Every time you start a new Claude Code section, Claude Code has zero memory of what you built yesterday, zero memory of your stack, zero memory of the rules that you spent time setting up. It starts completely fresh, and it has to review your entire repository before it figures out how to do what you want it to do, unless you have this one file set up correctly. I'm John. I build AI agent systems for businesses, and today I'm going to show you how to write a CLAUDE.md file that actually works, not the vague, bloated version most people build, but the kind that turns Claude Code into something that genuinely behaves like a senior developer who already knows your project, perhaps even better than you do. I'm going to show you a bad example, a good example, break down the 6 sections that you need, and the exact mistakes to avoid. By the end of this video, you'll have a template that you can use on a real project stage. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So here's the problem. Without a CLAUDE.md file, every single Claude Code session starts from scratch. Claude Code has no memory of yesterday's conversation. You end up re-explaining your context, and Claude could make the same architectural mistakes it made last week. You burn tokens just getting back to where you were, and Claude has to review your entire context and guess your code style. And guesses can be wrong too. No matter how good AI is, it can still make mistakes, so just be aware of that. However, with a properly written CLAUDE.md file, none of that happens, or at least significantly reduces the chances of mistakes happening. So Claude knows your stack the moment it opens. So the context, it loads automatically. Your rules get enforced on every single session without you saying a word. Tokens go towards actual work instead of repeated setup and having to review your context and your entire repository again and again. And that takes up so much of your Claude tokens. And Claude follows its right patterns from the very first prompt. And that's exactly what we're building today. CLAUDE.md is a difference between starting from scratch and starting from strength every single time. So what actually is a CLAUDE.md? So CLAUDE.md is a markdown file. MD means markdown. So a markdown file that Claude Code reads automatically at the start of every single session before you type a single word. So you can think of it like onboarding a new developer. Before they touch the code base, you give them a brief document, the stacks, the rules, the architecture, what not to touch, and how to do the work, best practices. CLAUDE.md is that briefing document for Claude every single session. So now here are 3 things that you need to understand before we go any further. So the first thing is that it's loaded every single session. Before your first message, Claude has already read and processed the file. That's powerful. So it knows exactly what to do every single session, and it will not forget. So this is essentially part of the memory and the context. And second, it is not documentation. So I see this mistake constantly. People write paragraphs explaining their systems, adding context, telling the story of their project. That's documentation. CLAUDE.md's job is context injection. So it gives Claude the frame that it needs to work correctly. So it is different from pages of documents and SOPs in your company. And third, every line, it costs tokens. Because this file loads onto every single message in every session, a bloated CLAUDE.md file burns your budget before you've even started. So we're talking about exactly how much to budget, and it's probably less than you think, which means that you do not need to overwrite or overthink CLAUDE.md. It's important, but it's not so complicated as you think. So this is something that nobody talks about, and it changes everything. Claude Code has a finite instruction budget per session. So research on frontier language models show that instruction following starts to degrade at roughly 150 to 200 total instructions. After that, Claude Code starts to deprioritize the rules. They don't disappear completely, but they lose the influence. They get ignored. So Claude Code's own system prompt, the internal one that you never see, takes up approximately 50 of those slots before your sessions even begin, before you've even written a single rule. So your real budget is probably somewhere between 100 and 150 for everything. Your project overviews, your commands, your code style, your architecture rules, your hard rules, all of it competes for those slots. So this is exactly why a bloated CLAUDE.md is so damaging. Every vague rule, every paragraph of a background context, every imported document, they're all spending from a budget you did not know was limited. So here is the test that I use. Before writing any line to CLAUDE.md, ask yourself, if I remove this line, will Claude make a mistake? If the answer is no, cut it. Every line has to earn its place, meaning real estate is very expensive here, and it's very valuable. You have to use it wisely. So a quick question is, where do these files actually live? So you have 4 different locations. So there is a global file at this here, Claude/Claude.md, and it applies to every project on your machine. So this is where I put my personal preferences, my stack defaults, my hard preferences that apply everywhere. And then the project root file at Claude.md here, this is the one that you commit to Git and share with your team. This is what we are building today. There's also Claude local.md, but you add it to the Git ignore. So these are personal overrides, sensitive content, things that shouldn't be committed, things that should not be public. These are great for notes that are specific to how you're working on the project day to day. And then there is a subdirectory files. So it's scoped to a specific folder loaded on demand when Claude works with files in that directory. So these are scoped rules for a specific folder, and these are only relevant when Claude works with files in that directory. So my recommendation is that if you're building AI agent systems for clients, put your global preferences and hard rules into the global file and keep the project level files focused entirely on that specific project's context and rules. You can think of it as like the master MD file for the project, and you can think of these as like manager files, only called if they are relevant. So let's look at what most people actually write. So this is a representative example that I will use in this video to show you what a bad CLAUDE.md file looks like. I've seen various bad CLAUDE.md files, and I've seen them from various people, whether they are just beginners or whether they are non-technical founders who know how to use ChatGPT and prompt engineering. Everyone is trying to do the right thing, and I appreciate that and I understand that, but there is always a right thing to do everything. So I'm just going to quickly point out what is not done correctly. So first, it opens with a vague description. This is my project. It's a web application that helps businesses automate their workflows. Please help me with coding tasks. Please help me with coding tasks. Well, that tells Claude absolutely nothing useful. It's too vague, okay? So it's got no purpose or integrations. Claude is going to guess. The more vague it is, the more likely it's going to guess wrong. So I'll just briefly go over this very simple line. So this is my project. What kind of project is it? Is it workflow automation? What kind of workflow automation? So are you automating invoicing? Are you automating follow-ups? What exactly is it? It's a web application. So what kind of web application? Is it like a web app or is it a website? What exactly do you want? And helps businesses automate their workflows? Yeah, same thing. What kind of workflows and what kind of business? Is it an accounting business? Is it a manufacturing business? Is it a cleaning business? Please help me with coding tasks. Okay, Claude is going to help you, but this doesn't really help Claude in any way. Of course it's going to help you, but you're not being specific about how to help you. And this just takes up real estate. And as I said, real estate in CLAUDE.md files is extremely important. And then we are going to go on to the rules section. So write good code, be helpful, do not break things, use best practices, make sure the code is clean and readable. So these are all good rules and instructions for Claude to follow. But they're too vague, they're not specific, and they're not very useful to Claude in any way. They just consume instruction slots while providing zero behavioral guidance, and that is exactly the point. It needs to provide behavioral guidance, how to do things, how to do the tasks. Claude cannot act differently based on write good code. So if you're a software engineer, you know how to write code that is clean and readable, and you can provide those instructions in here. Even if you don't know, you can do some research, but if you just write, make sure the code is clean and readable, well, it's not going to help Claude in any way. And then we'll go on to the tech stack. So it says Python database API. Again, nothing. Which Python version? Which database? Are you using Postgre? Are you using Supabase? Like, what are you using? And API? What API? What integrations? Claude is just flying blind at this rate. So look at the documentation section. So there's 8 files imported directly into CLAUDE.md. README, architecture, API reference, setup guide, deployment, schema, contributing guide, all of it loaded inline. Every single message, Claude is going to process all of these files in full. So your entire instruction budget is gone. And as a result, Claude is going to drift, ignore rules, and repeat the same mistakes because the file is full of noise and not signal. I want you to be able to spot these in your life. So failure mode 1, vague project description. Web application for businesses tells Claude nothing. Stack, purpose, integrations, it's all missing. Failure 2 is generic rules that mean nothing. So write good code and be helpful are not instructions. They are vibes. Claude does not act on vibes. It acts on instructions, specific instructions. Failure mode 3 is docs imported inline. Embedding entire documentation files eats your instruction budgets before you ask your first question. You pay the cost on every single message. Failure mode 4 is no hard rules. Soft suggestions like remember to and try to get deprioritized by the attention mechanism because Claude treats them as optional. Failure number 5 is never pruned. So rules from 3 months ago sit alongside new rules. Old dead rules dilute your active rules. The file grows and your signals shrink. So let's fix it. So first, here's a framework that I use on every single project I built. So it's made up of 6 sections. So every section earns its place, nothing extra. So section 1 is a project overview, 2 or 3 sentences maximum, what the project does, the full stack, the key integrations. Number 2 is commands and workflows, the exact bash commands Claude needs to run, test, lint, and push database migrations. Exact, not approximate. And section 3 is code style rules. So it's specific and enforceable, not write clean code, but it's pedantic v2, use model validate, not parse OBG, things like that. And section 4 is the architecture and the structure. So a folder map and layer rules. It's where things live. What calls what is off limits. And section number 5 is hard rules. So the rules that you must always follow and the rules that you must never break section. So these are the non-negotiables, enforced with emphasis. And number 6 is references. So at imports, it points to detailed docs, but it never embeds them in line. That is the whole framework. Let me show you each section with a real example. So now I'm going to go over an example of a good CLAUDE.md file through both the slides, and I'll also show you the full version on this Google Doc right here. But first, let's go over the slides because these are the ones compressed for this video. It qualifies leads via SMS. It scores them against an ICP, books discovery calls into the client calendar, and the stack is Python 3.12, Anthropic SDK, Supabase, Fast API, and Twilio. So it's just 2 sentences. Claude now exactly knows what the system does, what it's built with, and what external systems that it connects to. So there's no guessing and there is no ambiguity. And now let's look at the command section. So this is a table, task on the left, exact command on the right. Run agent is on main.py Python, which is a Python file. Run tests. So this is the script that will be used for testing using PyTest. And then there is lint, type check, push DB migrations. So Claude can execute any of these without asking you what commands to use. And you notice the final line, you must run PyTest and rough check before marking any task done. So this is not a suggestion, that's written as an obligation because it is one. Claude treats you must differently than please remember to run tests. These are just the first 2 sections, and it's already more useful than most Claude MDs out there. So section 3 is about the coding style. So let's look at the first line. Pure Python only. Never suggest NaN, make, or low-code tools. That's just one line. It prevents an entire class of wrong answers. Claude will not suggest NaN as a solution or a no-code approach. One rule enforced completely, and it's in pure code. So let's compare that to use best practices. Best practices means nothing. It means everything but nothing. Best practices, it means everything but nothing. So what kind of best practices? And best practices for what? Whereas never use NaN means exactly one specific thing. Don't use NaN. So you can see how specific it is throughout the whole section. Pedantic v2. Use model validate, not parse underscore OBG. So that is a real API method. Claude knows exactly which one to use and which one to avoid. And then there is section 4 here, which is the architecture. So notice how I've laid it out very clean like here. So this is called a folder map. It tells Claude exactly where every file type lives. Agents in agents / tools in tools, pedantic models in models / all DB operations in DB /. And then the layer rules, orchestrator coordinates agents. Agents call tools. Tools never call agents. All DB operations go through src / DB only. So these rules, they prevent Claude from making architectural decisions you haven't approved. And without them, Claude improvises. And with them, it follows the system. And I will be making a video about multi-agent systems and orchestration on Claude Code in a later video. So please stay tuned for that and subscribe. And if you want to learn more about building these kind of systems for yourself or for your client, feel free to book a call down below or join our AI Avengers Skool Community. So let's go on to the next section. So hard rules. This is very important. So a lot of people skip this or write it so softly or vaguely that Claude ignores it or doesn't understand it. But you have to prioritize this because the hard rules section is where you put everything that is absolutely non-negotiable. And the language you use here matters enormously. So never is an absolute. So Claude treats it as a hard constraint, not a preference. Never commit .env files. Never use synchronous superbase calls. Never modify the orchestrator without explicit instructions. These are walls, not suggestions. You must create obligations. You must run the full test suite before declaring a task done. You must add type hints to every new function. These are requirements. And the stop instructions are underrated. If a test is failing and you cannot fix it in 2 attempts, stop and report back. If you are unsure which file to edit, stop and ask. These create checkpoints. They prevent Claude from going down a rabbit hole and doing damage you have to undo. Notice the level of specificity again. It's not use proper logging. It's use struct log only. Never use print. That's enforceable. Use proper logging is not. Name the section hard rules. Read these first. That phrasing matters. And now we are on to section 6. And this one is very important because it's where most people destroy all the work they did in the 5 other sections. So on the left is the wrong way. And 6 documentation files imported directly into CLAUDE.md, README, architecture, API reference, setup guide, deployment, schema, all loaded inline. This means every single message. Claude processes all 6 files in full. Your entire instruction budget gone, every message. So on the right here, on the other hand, which is what we just went over, it references sections that lists what's available and where to find it. Agent patterns at docs/agentarchitecture.md. DB schema is under schema.md. And the difference is that Claude loads each file only when it's relevant to the current task, not on every message, not burning your budget constantly. It's on demand. Everything that Claude needs on every message. So the rules, the commands, the architecture, the hard constraints. In imports, it has everything Claude needs sometimes. So detailed docs, SOPs, API specs. And in skills, it has the domain knowledge and reusable workflows that Claude loads on demand without ever touching your Claude.md budget. Oh, and also this is my full Claude.md file, the good example. So you can see here the full description and the commands and the project architecture. You can see the level of detail in here. So it lays out exact Python scripts and what they are used for and the architecture rules. And then the code style, so pure Python, Pydantic v2, 1 agent, 1 responsibility, so no overlap of the responsibilities, import order, and the agent patterns here. And all agents are async def. All right, and then the database rules as well, because data is not only important, but how you store it is also very important too. And how you handle the database is very important. So I have it included here and then the hard rules here. So you can see what I am very firm about when it comes to Claude doing the work and then the environment variable. So none of my API keys are exposed and they are handled securely. And then the references here. So I'm not going to go over every single line in detail, but I just quickly went over everything so far. So anyways, let's go back to the slides. So I want to quickly go over the 5 most common mistakes when it comes to writing Claude.md files. This is something that you want to revisit, so make sure to bookmark this video, click like, and come back to this video whenever you are using Claude Code. So the first mistake is that it's too long. So there's over 200 lines and Claude starts to ignore rules. The best Claude.md files I've seen are under 60 lines. Mine for most projects is around 60 to 80, so keep it lean. 100 is okay, but 200, yeah, you need to cut it down. Be concise. I guess I finally find out why schools, they require you to have word count limits in your essays. So anyways, mistake number 2 is treating it like documentations, embedding entire readmes in architecture docs. It kills your instruction budgets. Reference with at imports, never embed. So this is not where you put your 50-page SOP document. Mistake number 3 is vague instructions. Write clean code. Means nothing. Never mix sync and async. Being specific is the difference between rules Claude follows and rules that Claude ignores. Write clean code. Obviously, but how? This is something that you need to ask yourself. Mistake number 4 is everything being like an advisor, so having no hard rules. So soft suggestions get deprioritized. Use never and you must for anything that genuinely matters. So like, for example, when you recruit a new employee, notice this difference. You must never steal money from me, and you shouldn't steal money from me. Do you notice the difference? Do you notice the difference in the strength? So shouldn't means you don't have to do it. Shouldn't kind of sounds like I recommend you not do it, but if you do it, it's okay. Whereas you must never, it sounds like a very firm rule and that there will be very serious consequences if you do not follow it. So always be very firm, be very direct when you deal with Claude. And also mistake number 5 is never pruning. So review your Claude.md every time something goes wrong. So remove rules that no longer apply. Dead rules, it dilutes live ones. So make sure that it does not contradict itself. So a few things that will take this to the next level once you have the basics down is to use /init when you're starting a new project. So Claude analyzes your code base, detects your build system and test frameworks, and generates a starter CLAUDE.md file. Don't accept it as it is. Make sure to refine it, make sure to review it, make sure to improve it, but it's a much better starting point than just a blank file. And use Claude local MD for personal context that you don't want committed to Git. So these are things that you do not want to be made public. So like sensitive notes, personal workflow preferences for this project, and anything that's about how you work rather than how the project works. Add it to .gitignore. And CLAUDE.md, it survives compact, which is the cheat key to saving your tokens, which I will make a video about soon. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to subscribe. And when context gets compressed mid-session, Claude rereads the file from disk and re-injects it fresh. Your rules stay open even in very long sessions. And understand the difference between Claude.md, skills, and hooks. If a rule applies on every message, put it in Claude.md. And if knowledge is only needed sometimes, put it as a skill. And if something must happen every time with 0 exceptions, a hook. Hooks are deterministic. Claude.md is advisory. They are complementary, not competing. And finally, commit your Claude.md to Git. It compounds in value over time. The whole team shares the same context, and you can see exactly how your rules evolve alongside the code base. All right, so if you've made it this far, you now have a complete framework for writing a Claude.md that actually controls how Claude Code behaves on your project and performs exactly as you desire. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video valuable. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. That would really help me. So there are 2 other ways that I can help you go further. First, if you want to get hands-on with Claude Code and build your first real AI agent, I'm running a Claude Code workshop every Friday. No fluff, just building. The Claude.md starter pack from this video is included, so the link is in the description. And if you want to stay in the community after the workshop, then you can join the AI Avengers Lab down below, where we not only teach you how to use Claude Code, but also teach you how to sell the systems that you make to businesses and make 4 to 5 figures per project. Not to mention, we also host weekly coaching calls, and you'll also have access to our exclusive WhatsApp group. Or if you want to go further and you want this entire AI system built for your business, or if you want me to help you one-on-one to teach you not only how to build, but also sell. So if you want me to mentor you through your journey as an AI agency owner, then book a call with me down below. If you're a business owner, you'll have your systems architected and built out, and you'll also have a one-on-one strategy and implementation call with me. So you'll get a tailored strategy plan, which you can use for your future. So even if you don't work with me, no hard feelings, you'll still walk away with a blueprint for your future AI endeavors. And also it's limited spots because I only work with serious people. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.